and independent judiciary. We had a divided government by design in the Constitution. So I think there should be a tension back and forth between the president and the judiciary. Of course, Jefferson with Marbury versus Madison questioned the idea that the Supreme Court would have the final say on everything by ruling on whether or not it was in compliance with the Constitution and having the last word. He didn't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Later on, when there was a disagreement between President Jackson and the Supreme Court, Jackson said, well, they've made their ruling. Let's see them enforce it.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what I was talking about in the last segment. You have these separation of powers for the reason, so you can't have the president, like I said, just do whatever he wants because he gives you what you want on Monday, and by Friday, he does what he wants to do.
And that's the key issue. That's what I've been trying to explain to libertarians is how can you support Donald Trump because he has so many authoritarian positions that are anti-individual liberty? And it's like, I agree. But when you look at things like eminent domain, which he used for his own personal use, and I've talked about that. I did a report on that. But then you look at what Ted Cruz did. Same thing, eminent domain, but he did it for the Keystone Pipeline. He wants to take people's property, and well, he wants to allow a Canadian foreign corporation to take their property. How is that different in principle? It's not. And then when you look at what the libertarians are proposing, they're proposing setting up this management of our economy through the Trans-Pacific and Transatlantic partnerships, calling it free trade. And you've got Gary Johnson saying, well, I'm all for free trade, and I think this is the way to prosperity. And if people in China want to produce goods and services for you at a cheaper price, then let them. They want to be willing slaves to us, then bring on the cheap goods. And it's like, you realize, of course, I would think that after the history of decades of this type of propaganda that we've seen, and I bought into that idea at one point in time, but you realize what has happened, don't you, Gary? We have had our manufacturing base completely disappear. And we were told at the time, this is going to be great. They're going to make all this stuff, Jakari. We aren't going to have to worry with the pollution. We don't get to do the dirty, back-breaking jobs. They're going to make do all the heavy manufacturing for us, and we don't even have to worry about that. We'll just have this nice little service job. Well, now that we've got the service jobs, we're going to find that the next thing is we move to the gig economy, where we all work for Uber, that sort of thing. And Gary Johnson talked about that in the debates. He said, hey, Uber is great. That is the path of the future. You know, Uber cars, Uber everything, okay, until they take that away. And I think the best example of this, and a lot of people didn't understand the gist of the report last night when I talked about Jeff Bezos and these billionaires' space race. As I pointed out last night, it truly is a Sputnik moment. These guys have been working on the development of the space program for, in Bezos' case, since 2000. So he's been working on this for 16 years. And it was only last November that he got his first successful launch. And he edged out Elon Musk in that. He was able to launch a rocket up to the Kármán line, which is the line between the atmosphere and space. Above that line, you can't have a plane fly. There's not enough oxygen atmosphere up there. So that's truly outer space. So he's able to launch his rocket up there, bring it back, land it on Earth at a particular spot, reuse that completely. Okay, these guys are building an infrastructure. Why are they doing it? Well, Elon Musk is looking at it as the ultimate prepper issue. But as I pointed out, the thing that concerns me about Bezos is that this is a move, I believe, to go to the next step. I think it's the end game of both the globalist crony capitalism and this kind of world government, because he's going to build an infrastructure and an elitist community. If you saw the movie Elysium, remember? Oh, yeah. They showed those toroids, those outer space communities, and that is what they've been working on designing it. And when I did this report last night, Jakari, I looked at some of the comments. Most of these comments are like, these guys are absolute shills. We know they didn't go to the moon. That was a total lie. The Earth is flat and all this other kind of stuff. And look, I understand. We've had Alex talk to a guy who was on the front line of mission control at Houston. He says, well, I got my doubts as to whether or not we actually went to the moon. I understand. I don't trust the government. But I do know that the Earth is not flat, okay?
I agree with that.
We can talk about the science of this. We can talk about they could do a fraud. They are going to be able to do this type of thing. And we've had Hugo de Garis talk about the Ardalite War. He says, hey, look, when people realize where this is all headed, and this goes to Elon Musk's scenario, he says, all these disruptive technologies are going to get out of control. Well, Hugo de Garis talked about that. He said there's going to be a war between the people and the scientists who want to move ahead with these disruptive technologies and the people who realize how this is going to threaten their way of life. Once that happens, the elites will pull back to their space colonies. and they'll continue with their development. And that's precisely what Jeff Bezos.
Well, we've already seen these guys do this here on Earth, not so much with the rockets, but when you talk about these guys who hollow out entire mountains to put their fallout shelters in there.
Yes.
You know, they've done entire documentaries about this. So they say that you're a crazy prepper if you got a cabinet full of pork and beans, but these guys got fallout shelters, armed bodyguards, the whole nine to survive whatever they foresee is coming.
And so Elon Musk wants to prep by going to Mars and setting up a colony there. Bezos, and this is what I pointed out last night, was looking at what the physicists and the rocket scientists were putting together in the 1970s, specifically the physicist Gerard K. O'Neill. He came up with a design for space colonies that could be built manufacturing areas that would be in these special areas called Lagrange libration points. This, Jakari, is some of the most valuable real estate in the galaxy, because this is where you can put these things close to the moon. They can shoot material up to it and manufacture in those areas. So when he's talking about manufacturing, and this is one of the key things that he said out of the conference that he had, people talked about his conflict back and forth with Donald Trump. But what he said was, I want to turn the Earth, I want to zone it for residential and light manufacturing only. In other words, he's going to have a monopoly on all of manufacturing. So it isn't just going to be, let's play that clip from that conference. Let's play that. It's a 14-second clip.
All of our heavy industry will be moved off planet, and Earth will be zoned residential and light industrial. And that just makes a lot of sense. You shouldn't be.
But he's dead serious.
On Earth.
You hear the audience laughing. He says we're going to zone the Earth. We're going to zone the Earth, residential and light industrial. And people, ha, ha, ha. He didn't crack a smile. He wasn't joking. That's what they're going to do. That's Agenda 21. Agenda 21, as a matter of fact, the residential that's going to happen, we've seen what it looks like with Agenda 21. They're going to concentrate everybody in the cities. Most of the Earth is going to be zoned off limits to you. And then, of course, they're going to say, well, you know, anybody will be able to go to these Lagrange libration points. They'll be able to manufacture there. If you've got a rocket system, if you're a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, it'd be a fair market if you got your rocket system going.
So, yeah, you're going to have them do all the manufacturing for you. And this is what we have seen from Bezos. He's very, very intelligent, very, very calculating. He plays the long game. Okay, you think about it from Sputnik to 1969 when Nixon announced that we'd landed on the moon. Okay, 12 years. For 16 years, well, 15 years, it was November. For 15 years, he was developing a rocket system. Okay, he's taking a long-term view. This is not a flash in the pan. And he's looking to get this done in his lifetime. A couple of million people living in space colonies. You're talking about the elite of the elite. 2 million people, 1 to 2 million people out of the population of billions that we have here on Earth. And then they're going to have a monopoly on manufacturing. And there you can see those special points there. 1 and 2 are close to the moon. And there you can just send material up with the magnetic rail gun that was also developed by O'Neill. And we now see that with the Navy guns. I mean, that's accomplished fact. They could create those space colonies there for manufacturing, and then the zones marked L5 and L4, you can put something there and leave that indefinitely. You don't even have to manage that.
Guys, real quick, just found out when we come back from break, we will have INFOWARS News Director Rob Dew live from...
You talk about leveling with the American people. Have you always told the truth?
I've always tried to. You know, is she in it for us or is she in it for herself?
What difference at this point does it make?
Donald Trump has already sealed the deal for the Republican nomination. But will Bernie's wrecking crew be out in full force to tear the roof off when Clinton's camp steals California?
You know...
Oh, excuse me, I'm talking.
Let him run.
Join me and the rest of the InfoWars crew this Tuesday, June 7th at 7 p.m. We're going to be going live to document Hillary's last stand.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far.
So you ask my opinion, I will tell you my opinion. I'm not going to be channeling my husband.
Join us live this Super Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central for the InfoWars Nightly News.
You know?
Today, we are going to look at this judge who has been ruling basically against Trump and doing unprecedented things in the Trump University case. And I'll be honest with you, I've kind of ignored Trump University to a certain extent. I've done some research. But after Trump came out and said this guy is a Mexican, and by Mexican, his loyalty is to Mexico. And so I did some research and found out, wow, Trump needs to go further here. This guy is the head lawyer over a lawyer group based in California that for decades has been promoting basically race-based brainwashing. Now, I don't like the Ku Klux Klan, but Mecha and La Raza and organizations like this, as John Bound's report, that's up on INFOWARS.com, The Hidden Hand of Hate breaks down, these guys basically operate just like the Klan. They say, for those inside our race, everything. For those outside the race, nothing. La Raza means the race. So I see Trump say this about this judge, and I think, what, you're just saying because he's Mexican in his heritage he ruled against you? Has Trump gone too far? And I go look it up, and the guy is worse than what Trump's saying. And that's the problem. Trump will just throw something out that's true, but then I guess with the sound bites not get into the whole background of it. So we're going to talk about this judge a little bit right now, but I tell you, it's a fair headline to say that this judge is the equivalent of a Hispanic Grand Dragon. And John Bound's report breaks down the Democrats, the history of the Klan. It's easy to organize people around race-based systems. You know, the Klan says they're persecuted too. Well, Mecha and La Raza say that as well. So I got to say, Donald Trump is completely right again. This ties into the whole Trump University. I know that the Clintons have their own much bigger scandal. Roger Stone is here to break this down. But this judge, Gonzalo Curiel, this guy is simply amazing. And now we know why he is doing things in these rulings that's unprecedented. I just hope Trump unloads on him with like this Daily Caller article. Judge presiding over Trump University case is a member of La Raza. And again, that means the race. People say, well, that's okay because Hispanics can say we're a racial group, but whites, if you say we're in a racial group, it's bad. No, when people organize politically and say we're only for our group, classically liberal views are that's dangerous and bad, a la Adolf Hitler. Roger Stone, what do you have to say?
Well, Alex, I think, first of all, that it's important to establish that the judge is not only a Mexican radical, he's also a Hillary Clinton contributor. But let's put this entire this entire Trump University question into context. Trump University was a real estate course, and it was a very successful one for many people. Now, there were a very small percentage of students who were unhappy with the success of the course because they didn't go out and make $1 million immediately. There's an overwhelming satisfaction rate. The number of dollars involved here are relatively small. This scandal pales in comparison to Laureate University. Laureate University is a multi-million-dollar scam, essentially a series of colleges and schools where people were induced to load up on enormous personal debt. And then the college hired, or Laureate hired Bill Clinton as their chancellor, paid him $16 million, which was illegally concealed for 5 years, never reported as required by law. And the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, would give the schools $150 million. On top of that, Hillary Clinton's State Department would give Laureate $55 million. It turns out the guy running Laureate, Becker, is a convicted felon, a scamster who has also benefited and been a major donor to the Clinton Foundation. So Trump needs to counterpunch, Alex. He needs to be very blunt. Trump University, nothing compared to the scandal at Laureate University. The real question is, why isn't Laureate University on the front page of every paper in America instead of Trump University?
I want to get back into the university. I want to get back into Mecha and La Raza. When I sit here and say that La Raza and Mecha are communistic, anti-white, racist organizations, I'm not exaggerating. Look it up. And I protested them. I protested the Klan. I find it distasteful.
You think we have kids because we like sex? No, we're having kids ready to start this war. Believe me. I got another one on the way, and she'll be strapped up, ready for you. Come get it. Come get it. Come knock on my door and see what happens. We're ready. We're ready. I say, talk me, I said.
But the difference